currently I am in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Right on.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. That is
yeah.
what time you looking at right now?
It is 8:31 p.m.
Wow, okay, we're 8:31 a.m. Yeah,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah, yeah,
I love
yeah.
I love
12 hours ahead.
yeah, I love the future, so it's good to run into each other here. So, well, hey man, it's great to meet you. I appreciate you taking a minute out today and especially today being the 12th of March, we're on the kind of the 4-year anniversary of this whole global pandemic that we all
Mm,
went through. If we take a look back, how did
yeah.
you survive it? How did you get through it and how did it change you?
Wow. That's that kind of puts things in perspective. 4 years. It seems longer
Yeah.
than that, and
Uh-huh.
it also seems like it wasn't that long ago. So, 4 years ago, I was still working in education. So I was a dean of students at that time. And I remember being told, like, we're probably not coming back to school this school year. And I was like, oh, really? You think? And then, things moved into the next school year, and that school year was significantly different than what school years had been like in the past because we were hybrid. And yeah, and I remember though at that time I had already decided that I was going to take a leave the following school year because I told myself that when my dog crossed the Rainbow Bridge that I was going to take this leave and travel around because I'm not married, I don't have kids, I don't have the same responsibilities everybody else has. So I I made a plan to take that leave and it's what's interesting is as I look back on it now, like I don't it would be very hard for me to return to the world of public education. I think what I realize is that I don't have that same passion that I had for working in a public education sector like I used to. Now I am going back into education in August and I'll be teaching business English to adults in Seoul. So still going on with that, but I wanted to get into this whole digital nomad lifestyle, but what I'm realizing is that I'm very much a people person and I'm an in-person people person. So I derive a lot of energy from the people around me. And that's something that I like an audience.
Yeah.
I like having an audience. I like being able to speak to people and see them and interact with them and feel their energy where I am and kind of feed off of that energy in a way that kind of fills my bucket up, but then at the same time I'm able to provide value to them.
I'm an IT guy in a school district, in a public school district by day, and I've seen the irreversible change that's happened because of what happened with COVID. Just the absence of the kids, the way that it's affected the teachers with everybody coming back. It's really in all of the things that have been affected, all of the sectors of our world that have been affected, public education, I think, perhaps has been one of the more uniquely affected realms all the way around.
And I'm talking to a lot of teachers. That's kind of who my target audience has been these days with the mindfulness coaching that I've been doing is talking to teachers about how are you navigating the post-pandemic life? How are you navigating the sense of burnout? We're seeing it more and more and more these days. I mean, teacher burnout has always been high within the first 5 years, but now you're getting seasoned veterans. People, I worked in education for 21 years and decided to leave. And though that wasn't necessarily due to burnout, the reason I started practicing mindfulness was because that I was struggling with my mental health and burnout was a part of that. There were
Yeah.
other factors that were going on in there as well, but I mean, we're all just kind of navigating something.
Yeah.
And for me, what helped me move forward and kind of and I guess what I needed in my mental health toolkit because There were very, very few tools in there. Was therapy and mindfulness, and in doing that, I was able to kind of figure out some things for myself. So, the double-edged sword with personal development is that as we start to build some skills, along with that comes these feelings of remorse and regret and shame and guilt, that it took us so long to recognize these things.
Yeah.
So then we kind of have to pause and we have to say, okay, I need to sit with this a little bit. So I sit and I process this, and then the big thing is the self compassion, and say, all right, now I'm moving forward into the next realm, and it kind of taking on the challenges that lay within that realm, and then taking time to pause and say, oh, all right, man, I have some more processing to do. So it's just kind of this constant step. It's like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro or Everest. There are spots where you have to stop and acclimate to the weather.
Yeah.
And so you have to stop and acclimate to where you are in the present moment and what you're feeling and experiencing in the present moment.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get a handle on this new incarnation of your life right now. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders, the native language, all right? And it's career day, and one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child today in 2024?
Hmm. It's hard for me not to be snarky because uh, when I meet people, I never ask that question.
Right.
What do you do for a living? To me, it's the least interesting thing about them.
Yeah.
So what? How do I? Oh gosh, it like I'm fighting every impulse to answer that question, because I just don't. I've never liked that question. What do I do now? All right, so now I am a mindful and intentional living coach. So basically, I work with people who are trying to live more mindfully, more intentionally. I'm someone who enjoys routine. I enjoy structure, and I find that's probably why I thrived in a school setting, because bells told me when to start and stop. So especially now working in as a digital nomad, what I'm finding is just how important structure and consistency and discipline are. So I also like to work with digital nomads. My experiences are in education and in being a digital nomad. So helping educators manage that burnout, and then also working with digital nomads who are struggling with things like isolation, or finding a routine that allows them to stay healthy, that keeps them, going to the gym or eating well, or just finding a structure, finding a pace throughout the day, while also finding time to explore this new environment that they're in. But then also the culture shocks and the shifts in the transient lifestyle and the transient relationships. That's really been a difficult thing for me. Is I'm meeting all these wonderful people, but they're coming and going from my life, and I'm someone who likes to build deep connections with others, and that when those connections come and go, it's really challenging, and it can actually add to this feeling of isolation as well, because you have this connection and then it's gone, and it's like, well, where do I fit in? And one of the nicest things one of my therapists ever said to me is, Billy, wherever you go, you fit in. And that's true. I'm just kind of now getting to a point where it's like, where is home? Where do I want to be? And just establishing one spot as my location.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Oh, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player when I was in third grade, and I loved playing baseball. I still love baseball. I've been to every single Major League Baseball stadium there is. So that was kind of a bucket list thing that I wanted to accomplish. I'm trying to think. I think someone's building a new one here, so I'm going to have to try and figure that out before too long. You know, What's interesting is when I was younger, I did all the coaching stuff, and I feel like that was just kind of what I had always gravitated towards. But when I went to college, I wanted to major in computer programming because my brother-in-law worked for Microsoft and he made good money. And I'm like, and I liked being in chat rooms, so I thought that was the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not. It's
Right.
totally not. 2 weeks of calculus and Fortran programming made me realize that, oh, you're probably going to fail out of college if you're going to continue to go down this road. And I remember I went back to my hometown and I visited my baseball coach, and he was a health teacher. And he said, hey, do you want to teach class today? I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. What are you learning? And he said, we're talking about the top 10 leading causes of death. And I'm like, oh, I remember that from 10th grade. So he gave me the list, and I led this conversation with the students in the classroom. And I grew up in a small town, so a lot of them I knew from coaching baseball, or I knew their brother, or I knew their sister, or I just knew their family somehow, some way. They knew who I was somehow, some way. And it just kind of led this conversation that felt very natural. And when it was over with, I said, wow, that was a lot of fun. And he said, have you ever thought about being a teacher? And I'm like, well, I am now. And English was always my favorite subject. So I really lucked out, and I figured out what it was that I'm good at. And I think that's more important. People talk about follow your passion. For the love of everything holy, stop telling people to follow their passion. That's really, really terrible advice. Passion is a byproduct. So what is it a byproduct of? First, we figure out what we're good at, but we also understand where our weaknesses are. We understand what our needs are. I'm realizing now that as much as I want to be a digital nomad, I need interaction with people. So I like having these Zoom calls and doing these podcast interviews, but at the same time, I need to go out and interact with people.
Yeah.
And it's not just the socializing, it's me sharing my knowledge with them. It's me sharing something with them that they can find value in and implement into their own life. So that's really important to me. So that's part of it. And then the next part of it is exploring your curiosities. What is it that you want to know? What is it that you want to learn? What is it that as you explore it, you're like, oh, now I'm going down this rabbit hole. But it's also adding value to you in a way where it's challenging you. You're bettering yourself, it's moving you along in some way. And then next, you're finding your crew, your community. That's really, really important. So once you have those three things in place, now you have your purpose. So then how do you turn purpose into passion? You multiply it by consistency, discipline, patience, and self-compassion. That equals passion. But passion and purpose don't have to be your career. That's another lie we need to stop telling people. Sometimes a job can be a job that pays you money so you can do the things that give you purpose, that give you meaning, that fill you with passion. And
Yeah.
that's okay too. So I get tired of hearing people talk about, follow your passions, or turn your passion into a job. As soon as you do that, it becomes work.
Yeah.
Do what you love and you never work a day in your life. False. Do what you love and you work harder, because you kind of get consumed by it,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you get bogged down with the little details, and it's just not as much fun anymore.
Yeah.
So how do you pace yourself and all that?
Very well said. So let me ask you this as a baseball fan. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one Major League Baseball game, one moment, where are you going?
Mm. Man, I watched the Twins in '87 and '91 on TV,
Yep.
but I think, like, if I could be in the Metrodome, that would have been fantastic. I was there for 163 in, oh, what year was that? Was that 2012? I think, I can't remember. It was it's on like all the top 20 baseball games of all time, right?
Yeah.
So if I was at 163, I felt the excitement in the Metrodome that year. No, it must have been 2009, because I think Target Field opened in 2010. So the electricity in the air for that, it was electric. In 2006, the Twins clinched the AL Central Division, and on the last day, so game 162, I was at that one. And I remember they all walked around the field and they were high-fiving the fans. And I was in the second row and I kind of elbowed some little kids so I could get to the front row. And Torrey Hunter was walking and he and I high-fived and we connected so hard that we just looked at each other and we were like, yeah. And then
Yeah,
we high-fived again. It was awesome.
that's
So
great.
if I could be at game 7, the 1991 World Series, the greatest World Series that's ever been played, with the second greatest pitching performance ever in a World Series game, with Jack Morris pitching that 10-inning shutout,
Yeah,
that would be a dream. That'd be so awesome
yeah,
to relish in that moment.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and to see Kirby and that all that, I remember it was so loud on TV, like unbelievably loud in a way that I'd never heard before. So let me ask you this: in your life, who's been kind of a hero or a role model for you?
Yeah, I had an associate principal who I worked very closely with, and she was an incredible mentor to me this 6 years that I was a dean. So much so that she asked me to be or give the toast at her wedding, and that was a big deal to me because she's extremely introverted, so she has a very small close knit group of friends, and for her to, and not many of them are at work, so for her to ask me to give the toast at her wedding was really special for me, and I put a lot of thought into how it would go, and I went through it and crushed it, and a lot of people were like, oh, that was great. And even, we and I she and I still talk about it to this day, and it's cool because we still say I love you to each other, like even though I'm not working with her anymore, we still say I love you to each other, just because we the experiences that we had and the connection that we made and the relationship that we have, it goes beyond just work friends. Like, we are friends for life.
So if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, who would that be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
So I have a huge regret right now because I had an opportunity to meet podcast legend Jordan Harbinger. So Jordan Harbinger is my favorite podcaster. The Jordan Harbinger Show is absolutely amazing. I listen to it every single episode. And what's really great about Jordan is that he really responds to his listeners. And he has millions of listeners out there, but he interacts with them on social media. And I had, emailed him because he'd been traveling and he was a guest on my show. So I got to meet him virtually. But he was going to South Korea, and I had spent 10 months in South Korea. And of course, when he was there, I wasn't. And he'd said, hey, you're in South Korea, right? Let's go and hang out. We're going to do a food tour. You're welcome to join. And I'm like, oh, I'm not there right now. So if I could meet Jordan Harbinger, that would be really cool. I'd love to just sit down with him in person and have a chat. I really enjoyed the time that I had to chat with him virtually, but I think just to do that in person would be really cool.
That's a catch 22 though, because you've been there, you've tasted the nectar. You just didn't get inside the flower. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of someone else who maybe I haven't had the opportunity to talk to even virtually, but um who it Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins has always been up there as someone that I would love to sit down and talk to. I don't know if he'd be as much fun as and also Dave Grohl. Give me
Yeah.
Dave Grohl, give me Henry Rollins. If the three of us could sit down, that would be my dream conversation right there.
Break a little bread. Yeah, I I write a lot, and I just wrote a poem a little while back. I actually got an email from Henry, and I know it was him about
Oh,
yeah, it was about 5 years ago. I have a jazz radio show. He called through and picked an album that specifically was his favorite jazz of all time, and I think it was for either Verve or Blue Note. So I reached out and said, "Look, Henry, I won't take a lot of time up, but I love the diversification of you and just the whole history of Black Flag and the fact that you're a jazz guy. This would be really fun." And he came back and he was like, "Seriously, dude, I would love to. I have no time at all." It was totally Henry. Like I could hear him telling me that. And he was just like, "I just don't have any time. Thank you for reaching out. Peace." And that was it. And I was like, "That's the best rejection letter I'm ever gonna get in my life."
oh, but that is though that's a follow-up. I mean, it's been 5 years. He's not on tour like he was doing his
Yeah.
speaking gigs. I actually went and saw him do a speaking gig. It was probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago. So he probably was on the tour. Man, I would follow up with that and just say, hey man.
Dude, you're totally right. What I need to do is just open that email up and just say, "Hey, look, what do you say? Just 5 minutes. It's just a sound bite. Let's see." So,
Yeah,
I'm glad
yeah,
we
what you
opened up
got?
we
Yes.
opened up the gates of Henry Moore door. Let's do it.
Oh, please! Oh man, please do, and let me know when that
Yes,
episode comes out too, because I want to hear it. Oh my gosh,
100%.
that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I'm
I used to
I'm
see
giddy for you. I'm
y
giddy for you
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. I used to, see him all the time do spoken words, so yeah, that would be
Hmm.
huge. So, you're very accomplished, you're very well traveled. What is the thing that you've done in your life that you're the proudest of up to this point?
Hmm. You know, I think when I look back on these travels, I feel very. Japan was number one on my bucket list. And I always wanted to visit Japan during cherry blossom season, and I made it last year. And I
Yeah.
was in Kyoto, which is the just most stunning city in Japan. It's incredible, and to be there during cherry blossom season was really something. It was just absolutely beautiful. But I also am quite proud of the podcast that I had. I did it for 3 years. I'm not doing it anymore. I put an end to it in December of 2023, but I did it for 3 years, and there's a lot of outstanding content, a lot of great conversations. I met a lot of amazing people and had great conversations with amazing people in that podcast. And I look at that body of work and I can honestly say that, wow, the good job. you know, I look at it and I'm just really, really proud of the work that was completed for that.
Yeah, when I look back, and I think about all of the things that I've done in my life, there is something very special about having a really good podcast where you connect with people because like you said, that I think that's one of the things that's the most deeply satisfying is that we have that human connection. And I think we learned that in COVID. Now, if COVID would have happened in 85 when we were that age and we didn't have the connectivity, it would have been pretty grueling. But I think with all of the connectivity that we had, I think we realized, ironically, that we need to be together in a room. We need to break bread. We need to have wine. We need to exchange the energy particles together. And I think that's the main thing. And the beauty of podcasting in this world of increasing mental awareness, I think that there's a therapeutic nature that's very key and elemental to our evolution and our healing as humans.
Wesley, you pose a good question there. If COVID had happened in '85,
Man,
now I grew up on a farm, and you know we didn't have the internet, that kind of, no one did in '85. But part of me wonders if we would have felt more connected.
true. Well, I mean, when I've walked around and I've looked at the Pantheon with my own eyes in Italy and I've looked up and no one can figure out how they did it, I think there was a level of an absence of distraction. I think there was a level org of organic thought that's different from what we're doing because we're distracted. Someone was talking recently about all of the choices that we have to make in a day, from a text coming through to a phone call to driving down the street to being on the job. I mean, there's a litany of things. I mean, there used to be 2 or 3 mustard brands that we would have as a kid, and it was the same yellow mustard. Now we have infinite amounts of condiments to choose from. It's just like, wow, it doesn't stop. But I always think about '85, about Back to the Future when Marty McFly, when he was in bed and that guy in the hazmat suit played Eruption into his ears, and he was like, "Whoa, what is that?" And how groundbreaking that was, and how we're living this reality right now of all these technological accoutrements that are just blowing my mind being a kid of the '80s. It's like, "Oh
Mm.
my God, this is a Jetson episode every day we wake up."
Yeah, I long for the days of Oregon Trail, man. That was good
Man,
stuff.
get out. Are you kidding? That's it.
Oh,
I
man, I'd kill to die of dysentery.
Dude, I remember in 8th grade, that was my first programming, thing. On a floppy disk, we had to come up with our own version of Oregon Trail, and no trigonometry, nothing that would scare me out of college, but it was enough to be like, "Wow, this is pretty cool," you know? But I remember that. Yeah, those people were just falling off like flies. "Oh, you ate the honey. You shouldn't have done it. There was something in it."
Oh,
Oh, man.
yes. Many, many, many good days spent playing some Oregon
Oh
Trail
my
back in the day.
God. Forget about it. So at the end of the day, Billy, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of your listeners, all of your clientele, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. You know, I tell people that I practice mindfulness so that I can be this level of obnoxious, because if I didn't, I'd be an out of control asshole. So that's kind of how I see myself, as just someone who's high intensity, who's high anxiety, who's high energy, but is able to channel that in a way that allows me to be productive at a high level, maybe at not at the highest level. I kind of see myself as a bit of an average bro in many regards, but I I kind of have this outlook where when I meet somebody, they need to be at least as interesting as I am, because I've done some interesting things in my
Yeah.
life. And there are definitely things when I look at other people, I'm like, oh wow, you are like surfers, man. Surfers are just a wild breed of
Oh,
people.
dude.
They are living free. I met some I'm when I stayed at the Ngor Island surf camp in Dakar. It was definitely stretched my comfort zone to be there. That group there, they know no bounds. They
Yeah.
just go, and it's really, really incredible. And so I look at them, and I have to be mindful not to compare myself to them, because there are probably things that I can do that might be outside of their comfort zone. So I I think of myself as somebody who connects well with others, who enjoys connecting with others, and is just endlessly curious.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big reason why I wanted to do the podcast, is because I wanted to explore where what we can do in order to live better lives, not necessarily our best lives, but just incrementally better.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, deep down in me, there is this teacher, and I know that I have a wealth of knowledge and experiences that I can share with others. I have a wealth of perspectives that I can share with others, but I also wanted to hear from other people too, and give them a platform so that they could share that. And for me, being that platform, being that cheerleader, being someone who advocates for other people who I believe are doing great things out there, that's really important to me as well.
Absolutely. So well said, man. Billy, this has been great. If anyone wants to reach out, they want to hire you, learn more about you, listen to the podcast, anything and all things related to your world, where do they go?
Yeah, you can go to www.billylahr.com. It's Lahr. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's Billy Lahr. I'm also on Instagram, mindful_midlife_crisis. That's the name of the podcast, the Mindful Midlife Crisis. No new episodes coming up, but you can go back and listen to the 125 plus episodes that I've done over the course of those 3 years. Those are the best ways to contact me. My email is billy@mindfulmidlifecrisis.com as well. Let me know. There are places on the website where you can schedule a call with me too if you want to chat, if you want to, kind of, we could talk travel, we can talk mindfulness, we can talk whatever. If you just need someone to be like, hey, I heard you on the Famous Interview Show with Joe, and you sound like an interesting dude, let's chat. Let's do it.
I love
up
it.
for it. I enjoy having these conversations.
Absolutely. Let's be a catalyst. Billy, this has been a joy, man. Thank you, sir. Keep traveling well. Keep living well, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.